Human thought and consciousness react according to strong memories of past stimuli. If you have strong memories of fun and happiness, and those happy memories come back to you when you do something, then that lucky person will be full of vitality and will use the image of fun and happiness to give you the energy to do something. You can wake up full. However, if painful, sad, or frightening memories remain strongly with you, and when you recognize something, those past memories come back to you, and you end up repeating extremely negative actions. That point is neurons. Neurons literally fire and connect to the brain's memory areas that store strong past memories, memories of events that evoked strong emotions when we perceive similar events. Then, in an instant, the intense memories and emotions of that time will come back to you from the memory area of your brain. This is because neurons have the ability to connect to the relevant memory area in the brain every time a similar memory occurs. So if you have had an experience in the past that caused a strong emotion, whether that strong emotion is positive or negative, that memory or emotion will come back to you over and over again. And since our three-dimensional experiences are only recognized within the memory area of our brains, we literally have to re-experience strong memories and emotions over and over again. Normally, once we have had such a strong negative experience, we are unable to tolerate those negative emotions forever. For example, when a child is subjected to violence, criticism, shouting, yelling, callous neglect, disregard, or being treated as a nuisance by a ruthless and cruel parent, the emotions that a young child may feel from such treatment are extremely painful. Fear, anxiety, impatience, anger, sadness, hopelessness, guilt, and all kinds of negative emotions are remembered with strong impressions. These strong negative memories and emotions are a function of our brains, and neurons fire regularly, repeating the combination of emotions and memories from that time, making us feel the same emotions and scenes as we experienced at that time. It is revived. We usually cannot tolerate such painful emotions. Therefore, when we experience something that brings up painful emotions, we become self-protective by shutting down the painful memories and emotions of the past. For example, let's say you spent your childhood experiencing verbal and physical abuse from a sweaty, cigarette-smelling father. Then, when you are near a similarly cigarette-smelling, sweaty adult man, the neurons in your brain automatically trigger memories of past violence. The memories are recalled with such vividness and intense emotion that the attack on the mind is so intense that we cannot withstand it. Then, naturally, we put pressure on our hearts to prevent those memories from arising, and we begin to normalize our emotional fluctuations. In time, the person may no longer have clear memories of the violence that was actually inflicted on him by his father. However, the memories of the terrifying violence etched into our brains remain vivid, so those impressions and emotions will come back again and again. Therefore, if you go near a grown man who smells of cigarettes and sweat, you will end up feeling extremely anxious and uncomfortable. He ends up hating the adult man for no reason, and even if he does have a conversation or interaction with the man, he becomes paranoid and eventually causes the man to act in a way that attacks him. The same thing happens with unreasonable and heartless behavior from childhood friends. You may remember that when you said something to a friend, your friend got together with other friends and made fun of you, ridiculed you, and made fun of you. I'm sure many people have had similar experiences. I think so. If you have had such an experience, you will find that whenever you have a conversation with someone, the bad memories from that time will come back to you, and you will be forced to suppress those bad memories and get over them. On the other hand, if they are unable to push past painful memories away, their social life becomes abnormal, and they are unable to even communicate with others. In this way, many people carry extremely painful traumatic memories and emotions inside them, burying them deep within their hearts and hiding them as they go about their social lives. There are few exceptions to this situation, and your neurons will continue to react to events that bring up past memories, move in ways that bring up unpleasant emotions and memories, and your defenses will reflexively kick in and try to push those memories and emotions away. It will be. Then you no longer know why. You have deep fears in your relationships, and you are exposed to the feeling that at any moment you will be persecuted again, like you were a child. The stress is so great that many people end up feeling uncomfortable or averse to socializing with others. Even though in reality they are no longer being bullied or assaulted, they unilaterally have a premonition that it will happen and create a situation in which their behavior and facial expressions make them feel like they are being victimized. When the victim's state of mind, attitude, and facial expression become a conditioned reflex, the other person confronting the situation will be influenced by such reactions. They may feel that they are inciting fear, that they are suspected of planning an attack, or that the other person is paranoid. Or, more simply, your friend starts to feel like you hate him and aren't interested in building a friendly relationship with him. If you do this, the person you are talking to will naturally start to dislike you or avoid you, and before you know it, you will find yourself left out. What creates this situation is the memory reproduction mechanism that is chemically formed in your brain and neurons, and this situation persistently repeats itself as if it were to repeat itself semi-permanently. And no matter how much you try to suppress that reaction, ignore it, or run away from it, it's a reaction that repeats itself, so you can't completely contain it, and it ends up causing you a lot of stress. The psychological trauma caused by the intense negative experiences we have once had, and the mechanisms by which we relive them, must be wiped out. The mechanism of reliving the experience, the reflexive firing of neurons over and over again, must somehow be prevented from occurring. Various methods are being used to achieve this, but they are not always successful. Endo and Kazumi-san have both lived lives trapped by strong trauma. Each of them has a method that they have put into practice and finally achieved overwhelming results. That is the trauma note method that I have talked about several times on this channel and sub-channels. The trauma note method does not try to suppress or distort past traumatic events, but rather it is a method that directly looks at the traumatic events and emotions. What happens to our emotions when we face a traumatic event and the emotions that were generated at that time? Even if it happened 20 or 30 years ago, we remember it at some point, and it brings back bad memories. The physical and psychological violence they suffered from their violent fathers during their childhood is so severe that even in their 40s and 50s, the memories and psychological damage they endure continue to come back to haunt them. We have managed to stay alive by trying to forget or disguise those terrible memories for decades. And for decades, those memories have come back to haunt us over and over again, causing us pain. The trauma notebook method involves briefly writing down the events that bring back unpleasant memories. For example, suppose you encounter your father who is sweaty and smells like smoke, and you feel disgusted. Suppose that at that time, memories of being physically and mentally abused by your father came back to you when you were a child. Write down what happened at that time honestly and concisely in your notebook. At this time, you can take notes on a device such as a smartphone or computer, or you can take notes on physical paper. When I was in the first grade of elementary school, my father lost his game to gamble to alcohol, and in anger, he insulted me about my appearance and hit me on the head. The key is to remember specific events, and if you remember specific events, write down concise information that can identify the event. The reason you should write down specific events in this notebook is to remind yourself of the bad memories from that time. Therefore, it is best to spell out the content in words that you can remember. It is minimal and can be written in 1 or 2 lines. Since the purpose is to recall facts and emotions, no further analysis is necessary. A description that brings back unpleasant memories from that time is sufficient. Then, write down the emotions you felt. When I was in the first grade of elementary school, my father lost his game to pachinko due to alcohol, and in anger, he insulted me about my appearance and hit me on the head. It smelled of alcohol and cigarettes, and it was disgusting, and he punched me. I was angry, and I felt so uncomfortable that I wanted to beat him up. I still can't forgive him. It's an honest feeling. This is strange, but simply recalling these memories does not remove the trauma. However, if you record this traumatic memory event in a notebook and honestly write down your feelings at that time, you will be able to sort out the negative emotions that you cannot sort out within yourself. And this is not something you can write just once. You have to read and reread what you have written once. Over and over again, we reread the traumatic events from our past, and we also reread the descriptions of the emotions we felt at that time. As you repeatedly reread these events and emotions, your own mind will come to terms with them, and you will become calmer. You calm down after coming to terms with the fact that I was subjected to unreasonable abuse by my sweaty, violent father, and I felt so much hatred that I wanted to do killing him, and it was painful. The fact that you were abused, and the hatred and pain you felt because of it, settles in your mind as a single event. In this case, the damage and feelings you suffered 30 years ago when you were an elementary school student will be clearly recognized by your future self, and your elementary school self 30 years ago at that time will be convinced. Both the painful event and the painful feelings are clearly recognized, understood, and made sense. For everyone, the events that you have strong memories of that you have come to terms with will be organized as memories of the past and as objective facts. Then, even if you had a similar experience or encountered a similar person that reminded you of that time, your neurons would not feel a sense of crisis, and you would no longer reflexively recall the vivid memories and emotions of that time. Rather than bottling up or covering up your past experiences and emotions, you can face them head-on, write them down objectively, and read them over and over again to purify your past traumatic events as memories. And I'm sorry that the events and emotions that made you feel bad or feel victimized are not just one episode. There are countless episodes, each of which has traumatized you, and you are awakening again and again to the consciousness of the victim, reawakening painful memories and emotions. Even if we use various methods to suppress or disguise these painful emotions, we cannot eliminate stress because we still react deep within our hearts. However, if you briefly write down the traumatic event in a notebook, write down the unpleasant feelings you felt at that time, and read it over and over again, you will come to terms with the memory, and it will become a memory and be purified. This is the trauma note method. What you need to do is to write down in a notebook any events that make you feel bad, whether they happened in the past or in the present. When something happens that makes you feel bad today and you write it down, it often brings back old memories that caused that bad feeling. This is because if you feel terrible or disgusted now, in many cases, there was a similar event in the past, and that disgusting feeling remains as a trauma. Therefore, what you should do is first write down in your notebook the events that make you feel bad right now, and then write down those bad feelings in writing. As you continue to do this, someday, or soon, you will be reminded of the past events that are the source of those feelings. Write down the memories of that bad trauma in a notebook. Write down your feelings, and read it over and over again. If you work on it in this way, various bad memories will become acceptable memories, and you will no longer feel stressed or unnecessarily negative due to memories of past trauma. When you are freed from trauma in this way, your attitude towards everyone around you will also change. This is because negative emotions, attitudes, facial expressions, and reactions to those around you, such as discomfort, anxiety, mistrust, anger, and sadness, will disappear from your attitude. Such an effect cannot be expected from the countless methods that gloss over past traumatic memories without directly confronting them. However, when you face the traumatic event and its emotions head-on with a trauma notebook, your emotions, attitude, expressions, and reactions will naturally change. This means that your personality will change from a negative personality to, at the very least, a neutral personality. And of course, over time, that negative personality simply becomes a positive one. What will happen around you if you become a positive personality? The people around you will have at least a neutral or positive attitude towards you. At work or in a group of people, you may have felt uncomfortable, left out, or even been the target of attack. This is often caused by past traumatic events and emotions in your personality that have caused you to feel distrust, fear, anxiety, doubt, and anger towards those around you. That is, if you begin to live your life with positive attitudes, emotions, reactions, and expressions, the people around you will naturally react positively as well. In other words, taking a trauma note can have such an impact that even if your life is negative, it can be changed into a positive one. And almost all humans have negative experiences in this life, and most of them are only able to suppress those negative experiences. Therefore, every community, gathering, organization, and company is an organization made up of neurons with negative trauma. You all know what kind of consequences that will cause, right? Bullying, ostracism, political strife, jockeying for power, backbiting, inferiority complexes, and a sense of victory. The painful social life that you all know so well is revealed. We want to ultimately improve this society, purify it, and transform it into a society where people can share and trust each other. The minimum condition for such a society where people can trust and share with each other is that each individual in that society purifies their own trauma. However, as I mentioned in this explanation, almost all people suffer from trauma and live their lives by deceiving it. In order to change that society, I, Endo, have recently started holding an online salon where only people who have the spirit to change that society gather, but only for the Japanese audiences. The conditions for those who can join the online salon are not easy at all, but the first minimum requirement is to be vegan and to be motivated to limit sugar intake. Another condition is that only those who have actually carried out this trauma notebook at least have already been able to write down at least 20 traumatic events in their notebook. The condition is that the person has the motivation to continue purifying their own trauma using the trauma notebook and ultimately be freed from the trauma. Wouldn't you also like to use this video as an opportunity to release your own old traumas and learn to be your true self and no longer get in the way of the repeated victim mentality of your neurons due to trauma? You may have built your life with countless negative ideas, but from now on, wouldn't you want to change your life with purely positive ideas without being hindered by negative ideas? If so, please try purifying your traumatic memories using trauma notes with the aim of building positive relationships with trauma-free people. Write briefly about the traumatic event and how you felt at the time. Then read it over and over again until the feeling you had at that time becomes a memory. If you have more than 20 such trauma note descriptions, please consider joining Endo Online Salon, but only for Japanese audiences. What kind of world would it be if only people with positive consciousness were connected? And what kind of energy would influence your life? You can experience it before the rest of the world. Don't forget to go vegan and limit your sugar intake.
"時を越える海風」「潮とむくろの波」「今私の間をすり抜けては嘆く」うつろな瞳並ぶ鉄格子の国傲慢と裏切りを諦めで潰した愛と綺麗に飾ってどれだけの命詰めばやがて気づくのでしょうか血みどろの叫びすらも檻の向こうに隠して砕いてちぎって罪 に果て知らぬ欲は自己矛盾の声さえ雑音と捉える冷酷な作業のようにどれだけの涙飲めば世界は変わるのでしょうか。ほんのひとさじだけの甘さにいつまでも勝てない従うばかりで心の安寧と言い訳の山見つめても今も続く残虐に険しのべられずどれだけの命積めばやがて気づくのでしょう